Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in from coast to coast today. My name is Jesse. I'm here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And if you're joining us for the first time, like some of you are today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And you're catching us on a really big day. This is our first of 4 amazing programs. We're covering squid, deep water corals, cougars, and we are beginning in style as part of our epic I Was a Kid series. So Karen Romano Young did an amazing series. It's online, iwaskid.com, showcasing incredible careers, diverse careers in the ocean realm and conservation and science. You can check them all out there. We've done a bevy of programs with her over the last few years, and you can find them all on our YouTube channel at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So please do take the opportunity to do that. Lots to explore and discover. I'm really excited today to welcome for the very first time ever Tracy Romano, who is the Vice President of Biological Research and Chief Scientist at the Mystic Aquarium in Connecticut. She is the head of 15 plus expeditions to the Arctic. She has worked with belugas. She's worked to help improve animal care worldwide. I've hardly ever had someone, honestly, we do like tons of these. I've hardly ever had someone who has so many credits and has been lauded by so many amazing groups in her career as Tracy. I'm so excited for you to meet her, hear some of her incredible stories of a lifetime in and around the sea. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn you over to Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out of your crazy busy day doing all this research and veterinary stuff and science and more to share with some kids.
Hi, Jesse. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today and have an opportunity to share with you all some of the exciting adventures I've been on and all the work that we're doing in the aquarium for conservation. So I just want to thank you for joining us, and I'm so excited to be here. And with that, we'll get started. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself, but then I'm gonna take you from the aquarium up into the Arctic. So we're gonna do a little bit about studies at the aquarium that are helping animals in the wild. And then I'm gonna travel to the Arctic and take you to the Arctic with me. And then there's actually a video that I have about the Arctic as well, that if there's time, I'd love to play for you. So let me see if I can call up my presentation.
Bringing up the presentation. Here we go. By the way, Karen's here with us on YouTube too. So very exciting that everyone's joined alongside our kids. And Tracy, you are good to go. This looks spectacular. I can't wait to dive in with belugas, the Arctic, and climate change.
All right. Well, I wonder if has everyone ever seen a beluga? So these are what they look like. They're these white creatures, and I'm going to explain some more to you, but they're fascinating, and I love them so much. But I first started being very interested in dolphins, and that's because there was a show on TV called Flipper when I was your age, and I used to watch that show every week, and I was just fascinated by Flipper and the bottlenose dolphins. And then after that, there was a movie that came out that was about a scientist who was teaching dolphins language and how to speak. And when I was your age, I said to myself, can dolphins really do this? What is their brain like? Are they as intelligent as we are? And so I was so fortunate that I received a fellowship for my studies to go to the U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program out in San Diego, California. And in the picture here is me when I was in college, next to my mentor, Dr. Sam Ridgway, who's known as the father of marine mammal medicine and research. And at the Navy, they had 70 bottlenose dolphins. I was in heaven. And I was able in college to participate in research as a college student working with dolphins. And it all started there. At the Navy, they also had beluga whales. So that was my first introduction to belugas. And belugas are so unique. And you'll notice that they're all white. They also have, and hopefully my pointer is working, Jesse. I don't know if everyone can see my pointer.
It is indeed. You're perfect.
Okay, excellent. So I like to describe, this is called their melon, but I call it a marshmallow top because they can jiggle it around, and all of the air sacs right underneath their blowhole and their melon help them make different sounds. And these animals were known by fishermen as canaries of the sea because of the many different whistles and shrills and chirps of the different sounds that they make. So really interesting sounds. They have echolocation. So when they focus their melon, they send out signals that they receive back in their lower jaw about their environment. Their ears are tiny pinholes. So I don't know if you can see that little shadow there, but that's their ear. And then unlike other dolphins and whales, they don't have a dorsal fin. They have a dorsal ridge. And we guess that maybe that's because they live up in the Arctic where there's a lot of ice cover. And that may be how they break through the ice. So that's a little bit about belugas. And I was able at the Navy to study both bottlenose dolphins and belugas. And when I took the job at the aquarium after my studies were over, it was primarily focused on belugas because we have belugas at Mystic Aquarium. And this is a picture up in the Arctic. I'm going to take you there in a little while. But beautiful, beautiful animals to study in the wild and study their behaviors. And just amazing, amazing animals. And I hope everybody gets to see them in their lifetime. But where these animals live is the Arctic. And when we think of the countries in the Arctic, we think of Canada. And I know we have some folks here from Canada, Russia, Norway, Denmark, Greenland. Those are where belugas live. And they also live in subarctic areas. And believe it or not, we have some right here in the United States. And I'm going to show you a map of where they are. But the Arctic is known as ground zero for climate change. So as our planet is warming up, the ice is melting up in the Arctic. And that could be devastating for animals that rely on the ice, such as the polar bear and the walrus, and could have impacts for belugas. And so what happens when the ice breaks up is that more ships can come into contact with marine mammals, including belugas. So more ships mean more noise in the ocean, mean more chances for impact and collisions. Also, there's more oil and gas exploration that have been opened up in ways to get minerals from the Arctic. So each time we do that, there's an opportunity for pollution or oil spills to get into the water. As well as now with the waters warming, we have killer whales moving further north, which could be detrimental to belugas. So they're not usually with killer whales, but killer whales like to eat belugas. So this climate change is really changing the dynamics all over the world, including your own backyard and my own backyard here in Mystic, Connecticut. We've had more storms and greater storms and changes in temperature. And so, but it's really apparent in the Arctic, and I've seen it with my own eyes when I go there summer after summer. But we have an opportunity at Mystic, Connecticut, in Mystic Aquarium, to educate the public and engage the public on what's happening with the animals out in the wild and what they can do to help protect the animals. And so on this side, this is a picture of a wild beluga up in Cook Inlet. And when we look at belugas in Alaska in the United States, these purple regions show where we find belugas in the United States. And one population in particular, Cook Inlet, is critically endangered. So there's less than 300 Cook Inlet beluga whales left. And for the most part, around the world, there are about 150,000 belugas. And they're doing okay, but there are small stocks of belugas or smaller populations of belugas that are endangered. And again, with climate change, we don't know the future of belugas. Will they be able to adapt or not? And so we really want to try to understand belugas and what we can do to protect them. And there's also another population that's endangered right along the St. Lawrence River estuary. And so these animals are going to come into play. I'll give you a teaser. 3 animals from St. Lawrence visited us down here in southeastern Connecticut. And I'm going to show you some video footage from those animals coming down. But at the aquarium, we have 3 opportunities for beluga research and education and conservation. 1 is our research. 2, animal care and husbandry. So all the people that work at the aquarium really know how to care for belugas. And this came to a head when we had a stranded beluga calf from the Cook Inlet population strand in Alaska. The calf was brought to the Alaska Sea Life Center, and then personnel from aquariums around the United States that hold belugas and care for them came to care for this little calf. And this little calf's name is Tyonek. It was found in the village of Tyonek. It had been separated and abandoned from its mother. And so the calf was brought in, and we made formula based on our husbandry formulas at the aquarium to feed this little guy, to nurture him back to health. And I want to say that this was a huge success story. So he now has a home with other belugas in a social group at an aquarium. He couldn't be released back into the wild because he wouldn't survive. But this was because of what we do. We really understand how to care for these animals. So when animals strand from the wild, we're able to help them. And then education and outreach. People don't really know what, or if they don't know, they don't understand. So we try to educate them about what's happening with climate change, how it's impacting the animals, and what they can do to really help belugas. And our mission at Mystic Aquarium is to inspire people to care for and protect our ocean planet through conservation, research, and education. So those are 3 important items that Mystic Aquarium does: conservation, research, and education. And I want to talk mostly today about the research. And there's 3 opportunities that we have at Mystic Aquarium. 1 is to do studies under controlled conditions. And all this means is that we know all about the animals in our care. We know what food they're eating. We know how much food they're eating. We know where their food comes from. We also know the water temperature of their habitat and how much salt is in the water. We can also train the animals through it's called positive behavioral reinforcement, to provide us with biological samples. So just like you would go to the doctor to get your blood taken, here our veterinarian is taking blood from a trained beluga whale. So the beluga whale dives underwater, presents its tail flukes, and if I don't know if you can see these dark areas, but those are blood vessels. And the veterinarian can take as much blood as needed to assess the health of the whale or for research purposes. And then the whale gets its reward, all the fish it can eat. So all these different behaviors really help us learn about the belugas in our care, and then help in turn the belugas in the wild. We also have an animal rescue team at the aquarium. And believe it or not, we're responsible for 1,000 miles of coastline. So we help stranded animals on the coast of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Fisher's Island, New York. If an animal is in distress, we bring the animal back into the clinic if it needs rehabilitation. And then once an animal is healthy again, we release it back into the wild. And in this case, I'm going to share with you about those belugas that came down from Canada all the way down to southeast Connecticut. And then finally, we're in the field. We've been to many different places in the Arctic, And as I promised, I'm going to take you up to the Arctic with me as we go along in the presentation. This is our research team. We're a small but mighty team, but I wanted to show you where we're located. We're located at the University of Connecticut, and this is where the University of Connecticut is. This is their satellite campus that specializes in marine science. So we have state-of-the-art laboratories, and we started the aquarium where we get biological samples from the animals, but then we take them to our labs at the university here. And we're doing all kinds of research, and this is a list. I don't expect you to read this list, but what I'm going to do now is just share with you some of the highlights of the studies and how what we're learning on aquarium whales translates to inform about the wild whales. And the first study is called photogrammetry. And I know it sounds like a complicated word, but really it's taking photographs of animals from a distance and then inferring measurements. And we used to, on the left here is a picture of St. Lawrence belugas that are taken out in the wild. And wildlife biologists really want to know if the animals are pregnant and if they're getting good nutrition. So they want to understand measurements of their body condition. And the way that they're doing that is they used to fly planes and use a camera from the plane over the animals. But now guess what? They can use drones. They can put a camera on a drone and fly over beluga populations. Well, we're doing the same thing at aquariums. We can set up a camera. We can train our whales to swim under the camera. We could take a series of photographs, but then we can actually take measurements on our whales. And I'm gonna show you this. There's the camera up there. This is our whale, Keela, and Keela is swimming underneath the camera. Our trainers are taking a series of photographs from the camera, and we're going to send all these photographs to the wildlife biologists along with the exact measurements of Keela. So now our wildlife biologists actually have a database with measures of our whales and photographs that will help them figure out and ground truth the measurements and photographs that they're getting from the St. Lawrence belugas. And they're also doing this with Cook Inlet, the other endangered population. The second example of a study is CritterCam. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of CritterCam, but it's putting cameras on animals to see through their eyes. And one of the things that we'd really like to be able to do is study beluga behavior underneath the water. And so on our animals, we can test cameras and satellite trackers so we can see where they go. This instrumentation is very expensive, and we need to try to test on the animals. Is it going to work? Is the camera going to fall off? Where is the best placement on the body? We want to make sure it doesn't impact their behavior or their skin. And so here's a video showing Greg Marshall, who's the inventor of CritterCam. He came to the aquarium with his camera, and we're testing it out on Keela. We want to see how long it will stay on, where we should place it in the body. We want to see if her behavior changes. And here she's following the target pole by one of our trainers, and he's going to have her breach or come up out of the water. And we see that the camera is still on Keela. So what we really hope to, and this is really funny because she's at the underwater viewing, the camera's on her back, and here she is filming everybody looking at her underwater. So the goal here is to deploy this camera on a wild beluga so we can try to understand what's happening to the animals underneath the water. And there's no skin reaction. Everything looks good. So we can utilize the whales in the aquarium to test out all this technology before they're deployed on wild animals. And then the third project, there's 2 projects more that I'd like to share with you. Remember, we can train our animals to give us blood, and we can learn so much from the blood. We can learn all about their blood cells and how well their organs are functioning. We can learn all about their reproductive hormones and their hormones of nutrition to show that their metabolism is working okay. And we can learn about stress as well. We can look at how well their immune system is functioning, how well they're fighting off disease. And we can also look at their gene expression, what genes are turned on or off. And so by being able to take blood samples, we've been able to develop tests to understand health in belugas. And here we can also look at blubber thickness. Is their blubber changing throughout the year? Is their blubber thick enough to protect them? And so through ultrasound, just like your mom would get, perhaps if she thinks she may be having a baby, the doctor performs ultrasound. Well, we do this on beluga whales as well. And we want to know if a whale is pregnant. We want to look at how thick its blubber is, as well as how healthy the organs are. And so once we get our baseline conditions of animals that are trained to give us blood and take all those measurements, again, the blood is a window to health, then we can go out into the wild, and we're working with people in Alaska, native people that are experts on belugas. They know much more than we do, but they help us capture belugas for a short time, where we have an opportunity to put this satellite tag so we can track where the belugas go. And then my job is to take blood from the wild animal before it's released and carry out all the measurements so we can compare with the aquarium animals to assess how healthy are these wild belugas. And then the belugas released back out into the wild. The other thing that we work with the native people is that they rely on belugas for their cultural subsistence and subsistence. So they get all their nutrition from hunting animals in the Arctic. So they live in a small village, and there's maybe one small little grocery store. So all of their protein has to come from animals in the land and the ocean. So they fish a lot, they eat duck eggs, they eat caribou, they eat seals and walrus and belugas. But it gives us an opportunity to take samples from the animals. They allow us to do that, even though it's their food. They allow us to take samples from their harvest to look at different measures of health in the belugas. And so that's really important, and it's a wonderful collaboration. The native people also rely on belugas for medicine, and it's very much part of their spirituality, and it also ties the community together. So they hunt as a community, and it doesn't matter if you're a part of the hunt, you still get a share of the beluga products to sustain you throughout the winter. And moreover, it also ties the community to other places in the world where they share their harvest. And the video that I have is going to talk more about that. But ultimately, this is just a graph, and the different colors represent different populations of belugas. And we're just trying to compare health parameters in different populations. And that's ultimately where we want to go to understand their health. And then the last sample I have, or the last project that I want to share with you, is coming up with non-invasive ways to sample whales. So we can't get a blood sample from a wild whale unless we capture the whale first. But what are some different samples that we can take that we don't need to have hands on the whale? And so we're ground truthing these techniques in aquarium whales. So we're looking at poop. Believe it or not, we can take a poop sample and know if a whale is pregnant or not, or know how well their immune system is working. We can also take a breath sample, which is shown down here. Our whales are trained to give us breath. Here, Laura is taking it from one of the whales we captured for a satellite tag. But the ultimate goal is to transition this to be able to collect breath from a beluga with a drone or with a pole from a boat. And from the breath, we can really understand the health of the animal and if it's pregnant or not and its reproductive status. Other ways we can do this non-invasively is with a skin biopsy or a sample of their skin. And wildlife biologists have a biopsy dart that they can get a plug remotely from the skin of animals. And we're showing that we can measure all different kinds of genes of health. And we're comparing Cook Inlet and St. Lawrence belugas that are endangered with the healthy stocks, such as Bristol Bay and the Chukchi sea whales, and showing indeed those genes in different systems of the body are very different in the endangered animals versus the stable populations. And these videos just show us the behaviors in our whales, how we've trained them, again, to give us blood, to give us breath. This is a catheter that's taking a poop sample out. And then we're also looking in their saliva for a number of different hormones. So again, very important to ground truth this in the lab before we transition it to take samples from wild belugas. But very exciting technology that we hope we can understand the health of the wild whales. In addition to working at the aquarium in the laboratory, we also study the whales in the wild. And so I'm going to take you up. I know there are folks on the line from Canada. Actually, I think it was Alberta. So Alberta's down here.
Yeah.
And Somerset Island is way above the Arctic Circle. And usually we would fly into Yellowknife to get there, which is here. So we'd have to go all the way to Yellowknife. And then we would have to take a special plane to get to Nunavut on Somerset Island. And so this is the high Canadian Arctic. It was one of the most beautiful places that I've ever seen. And this is a picture of it. Believe it or not, in Somerset Island, there's a place called Arctic Watch. And it's basically a wilderness lodge for people that have a lot of money and want to have an experience up in the Arctic. But they were very smart when they built this lodge because in the summertime, this is the Northwest Passage, but in the summertime, thousands of belugas come to Cunningham Inlet. This is Cunningham Inlet each summer. And so those people that are at the lodge get a first up close look at the whales that are coming there in the summertime. And a funny story, there's a scientist cabin. You can't see it in this picture, but down this way, there's a wooden cabin, and it's where the Fisheries and Oceans Canada, sometimes they have rangers that are there in the summertime. And it's where our former director of research, David St. Aubin, used to do all his research. And unfortunately, David passed away at a very young age due to cancer. But he used to come up here every summer. And one day we received a phone call from Arctic Watch. And they said, we found this mug in the scientist's cabin. And it said Mystic Aquarium, 1998. And they said, no scientists have been studying our belugas for the past, 10, 15 years. Would your scientists be willing to come to Arctic Watch and determine what research could be done on the whales? So a really heartwarming story. This was actually David's mug, and that's where he used to stay, in the scientist cabin. So it was a great opportunity and really fun for me to go to where he used to do all his research. And I understand why he did his research. This is the cabin. This is where he used to stay. And the whales actually come right in here. And you can see how close I am and what a great view I have for watching the whales. And these are what the whales look like. This is from a plane, but this water is so crystal clear. It's as blue as the Caribbean. However, it's very cold in temperature. So it's not warm like the Caribbean, but it was just the clearest water. And you can see, you can even count how many belugas you see from this photograph. And so when we went up there, we determined what is it that we could study. And the first thing we wanted to see, could we take photos of the belugas and identify individuals based on their characteristics? And again, remember, belugas don't have a dorsal fin, but they have a dorsal ridge. And we noticed that each individual animal's dorsal ridge was a little different than they were each individual and different. Also, some had markings on their mouth, which were distinguished characteristics. And even in their tail flukes, in this one, you can kind of see a notch, but they were all different. So indeed, we started working with a wildlife photographer to take photos of the dorsal ridge or the mouth or the flukes of individual belugas to create a database so we could see if the same animals come back each year, if they come with calves, and start to learn about the population or that come to Somerset Island each year. We also determined, working with Woods Hole, that we could set up these hydrophones in different parts of the bay, and this is during low tide. This area is covered with water. This will be underwater during high tide. But we could set up these microphones to record the vocalizations of the belugas. And these are different vocalizations that you see on in this pattern here. And then the last thing we wanted to do was really observe, what are they doing? What are the animals doing here? And so this we call the caterpillar. It looks like a beluga moving like a caterpillar. And what we think it's doing is it's on the shallow and it's rubbing on the rocks that are at the bottom, and they're trying to get their skin off. So belugas shed their skin every year, and they come to these warm water estuaries that have lower salt content, and they're warmer and they're shallow. And we think that's what they're doing. We don't know for sure, but it seems that they're rubbing to get that old skin off so they can grow new skin. And we also saw a lot of moms with their calves. So the calves are gray when they're first born. So this is a youngster. And we saw the behavior with the mothers with their calves, and also other belugas. It was basically, I want to describe it as a beluga vacation spot, because every summer they come and they play and they socialize and they vocalize and they bond with their young. So really an incredible sight to see. And then this work really came into play when those St. Lawrence belugas, I think I gave away the clue. So we had a mystery. We had 3 whales visit us in Long Island Sound and Narragansett Bay. And this is very unusual because this is not the habitat for beluga whales. So our job was really to understand, what are they doing here? What is their behavior? Where are they from? And our animal rescue team's job was to educate all the boaters in the area to stay away from the belugas, that they're curious. We don't want any animals that get hit by a boat propeller. You should stay back from the animals. And so this was a very interesting scenario. There were 3 of them, and we actually were able to take photographs of their dorsal ridges. Remember, all of them are different. And this time we sent these photographs up to a colleague who studies the St. Lawrence beluga population and has a photo ID database. And he was able to identify one of the whales as being from the St. Lawrence beluga population. So we knew they were from the St. Lawrence, and they actually made it all the way back up off the coast of Nova Scotia. They were spotted. So we know that they made it back up to Canada. But really interesting. And we're not really sure what they were doing. Were they following food? Were they following changes in temperature? Were they just down for spring break? It turns out these were three young males, really just exploring, just like we all want to explore. They were exploring, and they made it back home. So very interesting. And the question comes up with climate change. Will we be seeing more belugas down here? Will we be seeing animals in different areas that are not usually in those areas? And so Mystic Aquarium is all about research to aid in the conservation of belugas. And not only do we do research, but again, education is very important to us. And all of you have so much to look forward to, because there are so many opportunities, and you can work at an aquarium. You could do an internship in the field. You could go up to the Arctic, whatever you want to do. There are opportunities, and you just need to study real hard and get good grades in school and really try your hardest. And these are programs in high school and college. I will say that for youngsters as yourself, the aquarium has summer camps and special programs for students your age. And I hope you all get to visit Mystic Aquarium at some point. But when you get to high school, there are other opportunities in college where you can even get paid to do an internship. So it's like a job, but you get to do research for fun. And it may be in the field, it may be in the lab at the aquarium, but really there's so many different opportunities. And we also started a program for those youth in Alaska that help us with our research. They come to Mystic. Some of them have never been out of the village in Alaska, but they participate hands-on in the research. So they see how we take a blood sample from a beluga, and then they're able to prep a slide themselves to learn all about beluga cells and all the different research that we do. But then they're also teaming up with our local tribal youth, and they exchange culture and stories and dancing and music. And, there are two groups of people that are geographically separated, but they rely on the oceans and its resources, and they have so much in common. So it's a wonderful program, and we're going to launch it again this coming October. So I'm excited about that. And then I wanted to leave you with this slide. This was taken from a friend of mine. He's a veterinarian, but he's been up in the space shuttle 4 times. And he took this picture. He's a marine mammal veterinarian. And he took this picture of the sunset from the space shuttle. And it just always reminds me, and especially for all of you, that I used to say the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want to do, believe in yourself. But now the sky's no longer the limit. There's just so many more opportunities out there. And I'm so excited for all of you. If you have a passion or a love or a curiosity, mine started with the dolphin and how intelligent they really are. Really follow those, because the sky is no longer the limit.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much. We will have to send the video to the classes after the fact, because we've only got about 5 minutes left for our Q&A together. So I want to dive in with questions for all our kids that are here. But thank you so much for such a detailed deep dive into belugas, the amazing research you're doing at the aquarium, in the field, and more. And let's lead in with a few quick questions. Tracy, if you want to come out of screen share, I don't know if you can see us right now, but please feel free to do that and take a quick
Okay, here I am.
Our first question, which came from online, I thought we might get this question. I love this when we have this for aquarium folks, is Muriel wanted to know, in Virginia, about whales and aquariums in general, the ethics of that. Now, you highlighted a lot of the really incredible research that's done with whales at Mystic and beyond, but if you could speak to the importance of having cetaceans in aquariums, that would be lovely.
Right, absolutely. So, it's important to make sure that the animals that are in aquariums have the utmost highest level of animal care, which is what we have at Mystic Aquarium. And it's also important to say that you learn as much as you can about them, which is what we're trying to do. We couldn't learn about the animals in the wild without having these animals in our care. And we're just learning so much that will help the conservation of the species in the wild. And so that's what Mystic Aquarium is all about, the education and the research and giving back to those animals in the wild.
Yeah, we do a lot of programs in conjunction with zoos and aquaria around the world. And what I want to stress for our audience is if you look for in the US, AZA, in Canada, CAZA, that means that the aquarium or zoo is at the highest standard of animal care. They've got people like Tracy that are taking care of animals in a really effective way. They're using them to sort of, again, gain knowledge and understanding, share with a huge number of the public animals that they'd otherwise never get the chance to see. I've volunteered and worked with aquariums and zoos for years in my life before Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, and I can't stress enough, when you go to a great one like the Mystic Aquarium, it really is a top-tier facility. So I'm really glad we got that question. Thanks, guys. Our kindergarten at Stephenville Crossing, Newfoundland, Miss Flynn's class. If you guys want to come in, flick on your mic and take us away with a question. Miss Coburn, I'm coming to you right after. Hey, guys.
Do you have a question? Does anybody have a question?
Hi.
Does anybody have a question?
And Miss Flynn, if they don't, if you have a question on their behalf, we'd love to hear from you too.
I don't really have a question, but me and the other adult in the classroom were kind of like shocked by the fact that belugas lose their skin, or they shed their skin. That's very interesting. We didn't know that.
Very cool. Tracy, if you want to speak to that a little more, thank you for that, Miss Flynn. Be lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating and how they do that. They swim miles and miles and miles to these estuaries in order to do that and grow new skin. There are reports of other dolphins and whales that do that, but not to the extent that I'm aware of with the beluga. So yeah, I agree. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. I love the footage of sort of caterpilling along too. This is a great presentation. Miss Coburn's class, our Dalewood School, your virtual class. If you guys want to come in for a question, you are good to go. Hey.
What a great presentation. It was amazing to see some of the visuals that you had. We had some students in here who learned visually, and it was really great for them. Just two quick questions. We were doing a little bit of research on belugas, and two things came out. It was a beluga fish and not a whale. Is there such thing as a beluga fish?
There is a beluga fish, yes. Yes, beluga. Yes, there is a fish that's called a beluga. So the scientific name for beluga, the mammal, is Delphinapterus lucus. I love that name, but it is distinguished from the fish. There's a mammal and a fish.
Wonderful.
That's great. I'm glad you guys know that.
The fish is a sturgeon, correct? I brought that up for everyone if you want to check it out. When
beluga caviar. Yes, there is a beluga caviar.
And what's your second question?
Just one last question too. You seem to your network. You talked about building your network, and you seem to build it with every experience. Can you just give us one of your highlighted experiences that you've had?
Ooh.
I think working with the people in the village in Alaska. I work out of a village of 250 people, and they rely on belugas, but they're all about making sure that they're there for generations to come. And so it's a great partnership to try to understand belugas and how to make sure that they're there for generations to come. And it's learning from the people. So learning all they know about belugas, they know so much more than the scientists. And oftentimes the knowledge that they have is overlooked by scientists, but I just want to say that the traditional knowledge that the people in Point Lay have, or in Canada, they're the native people, is so valuable, and we learn so much. And it's really the partnership between the scientists and the people, the native people, that really will take us far to learn as much as we can.
Tracy, I'm going to bring on Karen's comment on the YouTube chat, which is that you are amazing. And that is a beautiful story. It's something that we come to in a lot of our conservation programs. The sort of linking of Indigenous knowledge with Western science has been something that we've featured all year long to much fanfare. So I'm really glad that's your answer. And thank you for sharing that. We're nearing the end of the broadcast. Time flies and you're having fun in these programs. So is there any last message you want to leave our kids with on belugas, the work you do, anything that they can take home to keep the learning going?
I just want to encourage all of you out there. You know, I hope you become, I want to inspire you to, again, follow your dream. What makes you curious? What do you want to learn about? What would you love to do? And I just hope that you do that you believe in yourself and you have people that support you and you go after and follow your dreams. And I'm hoping that it's in marine science, selfishly, and that you want to study belugas and marine mammals and help protect them. But really, it's whatever you're interested in. So
I think you might well have inspired some marine biologists in the future, Tracy. So thank you very much for your passion, expertise, all of it. If you want to share this program with your family, friends, anyone, kids, it'll be on our YouTube channel immediately. So please feel free to do that. And if you want to learn more about Tracy and check out the other I Was a Kid folks, iwasaKid.com. Karen Romano Young made this possible. So thank you very much to everyone involved. We're going to bring in our class to say thank you and farewell. So Miss Flynn's class, Linda, if you guys want to join me in saying goodbye, have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye for now, guys. Thank you.